I'm going to take my KN95 mask off because we're socially distanced here, so y'all can understand me better. Thank you all for being here for the press conference that we've been hosting after each council meeting. I'm going to take some questions from the media in a few minutes. We have Councilman Beard and Councilman Green here too, which I'm welcome for you to put them on the hot seat as well. Joke. And we have a few other folks here that are going to have some follow-up comments from last night about the Probst Park discussion and also from the highly anticipated noise ordinance that I know the city's been interested in for quite some time. But first I want to kind of make some announcements to the citizens of some things that are going on. The Columbus Police Department is partnering with the Drug Enforcement Agency to host a national drug take-back initiative this Saturday, October the 23rd from 10 a.m. until 2 in the lobby of the police department located at 1501 Main Street. This is where potentially controlled substances can be properly disposed of in an effort to keep them from getting in the wrong hands. In other words, if you've got a lot of drugs left over from grandma that you need to take somewhere safely, it's not good to flush those things, or it's not good for the environment. This is a good place you can go drop those off, or any kind of drugs that you happen to be in the possession of that you need to get out of your possession, take them down there. I want to reference the United Way fundraising that's going on across our county right now. Encouraging folks to get involved with supporting the United Way. They do great things for our citizens throughout the area all year long. I would invite you to go to their website and look at some examples of some of the great things they're doing. The city, we're nearing the end of our fundraising period. We have 3 teams who are competing to see who can raise the most. Our fundraising period ends Tuesday, October the 26th. Councilman Beard and Councilman Green, if y'all haven't gotten your donation in, y'all are considered part of that team. I haven't done mine yet, but I'm going to. Again, this is the city's United Way fundraiser. I will be attending a Mississippi Municipal League conference on small towns the early part of next week for a couple of days down in Hattiesburg. Looking forward to that. The City of Columbus is having Pink Out Day, which is breast cancer awareness event on Wednesday, October the 22nd. All businesses are asked to display pink ribbons, balloons, and everyone is asked to wear pink. Glenda Burkhalter, Community Outreach Director, is the contact person for the city. Again, we've talked about this. Councilman Jones did a fundraiser on his Facebook page we talked about a couple weeks ago. Councilman Beard came in sporting his pink and promoting. I have my pink drink. I don't have anything pink to wear. But this is a serious disease that affects not only women but men as well. And I'm pleased that the city is helping promote something this serious, and I'm pleased that our council members and others are involved in really trying to get that message out. The Fall Fun Day Drive, Fall Fun Day Drive-Through, that's the title, which is sponsored by our Recreation Department, will be Saturday, October the 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Probst Park. Greg Lewis is the contact person on there. We're hoping to get some local students and members of the Mayor's Youth Council to help me with my booth. I know some of the council people will have one there, several businesses, Neil Schaefer will, United Way will have a booth. It's a fun way for the kids to drive through and get candy and visit, and people can see Probst Park and visit with individuals. I'm going to be dressed up as something. There's a competition and I like to win, so I want to try to come up with something creative. And so I hope that y'all will consider attending this. There also, people should know that there are a lot of churches are having trunk or treats and all those kinds of things, because Halloween actually falls on Sunday this year. And while the city cannot tell you to participate on Sunday, we are promoting these events on Saturday in hopes that the kids will be out and have a safe, good time. Okay? Now, the last thing I want to do is I do want to promote an event that's going on in Columbus this weekend, the Eudora Welty Writer Symposium. This is the 33rd annual event. To show you how old I am, when I worked at the W, I think that they were on their second one, Kevin. So now we're up to 33. This is a free event. It goes on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I know it competes in some areas with some SEC football. But they have great authors that come in that I would encourage people to go and take advantage of. I've been going since it started. I can't attend everything, but I've always been disappointed that they didn't get a bigger turnout, because this is one of the unique things that we have in Columbus, celebrating Eudora Welty, who is kind of a Columbian in the fact that she attended the W for a few years. And in fact, I met Eudora Welty at this. She came back. She was still alive at that point. I met her for the first time at this event. I don't forget it. But one of the things that I want to point out that's going on this time that I think is really important is the Thursday night, and this is free, remember. Ralph Eubanks has written a book called A Place Like Mississippi. I'm in the process of reading it now. Mr. Eubanks is a Mississippi native, quite successful Mississippian who's written for the Chicago Tribune, Vanity Fair, Wall Street Journal, the New Yorker. He's been on NPR, and he's a former editor of the Virginia Quarterly Review, and he's currently, and that's at the University of Virginia, and he's currently the visiting professor of English and Southern Studies at the University of Mississippi. This book I recommend to all Mississippians to read. I'm just about halfway through, if that far, and it's hard to put down, and it's well done. The one thing I will ask Mr. Eubanks is I've not found anything in very much detail about Columbus yet, and I want to ask him why we're not highly listed in there. Joke, but maybe we're in there somewhere. And then also the authors this year, we have a local, Thomas Richardson, born and raised in Columbus, graduated from Mississippi School for Math and Science, and is now back. He could be anywhere he wants to be, but he is now back in Columbus and is a member of the #1 faculty in the nation for STEM schools. So y'all try to go out and support these great authors, support the W. These are great events in Columbus, and we need to be very active in them. Now, I will turn to the meeting last night, the city council meeting. That's the main reason that we have the press conferences today, is to kind of clarify any information or discussions that we talked about. So I have a couple things I want to touch on before I turn it over to a couple other people who were here. As soon as I find it, I have it typed out on my phone. Where did it go? Here it is. Okay. Regarding the Oak Manor Apartments, which was a big part of the discussion last night, they're located at 901 11th Street South here in Columbus. The mayor, me, and the city council, pursuant to section 21-1911 of the Mississippi Code, found and determined the property to be a menace to public health, safety, and welfare of the community, and therefore ordered the Public Works Department to proceed to bulldoze and otherwise demolish the multi-unit apartment complex, which had fallen into a deplorable state of disrepair. I broke the tie in favor of demolition because there's no practical way in my mind that the owner will be able to invest the sort of money needed to bring the property into habitable condition. I would like to note, though, however, we told the mortgage lender who was there from New York, the owner lives in California, was not there, did not zoom in, that if he or the owner could come back, could return with a bona fide plan of a quality and prompt renovation, that the mayor and council will revisit whether to proceed to demolition. Now this was not a fun issue to deal with, and you can see the council was thinking it through and kind of went back and forth on their thinking. They were telling us that there had been some investments in the roof and stuff. Councilwoman Stewart, who is in the ward and has spent a lot of time there and has talked to the citizens quite a bit, has grave concerns about this. I agree with her. I talked to some citizens that attended last night, and they were very thankful that we took this action. Let me say this. This is not something the city wants or likes to do, but if you drive around certain neighborhoods in Columbus, you will see there are many places like this in town, and that is completely unacceptable. I doubt there are very many citizens in this town that would want to live next door to this or in it. One of the things that concerns me is the quality of the living for the people who are renting, and they said that they told us, I don't know for sure, that there may be 18 residents. I can promise you I and the council and the city will do everything we can to help them identify places to move to of a comparable cost. We'll do everything we can to do that. We're not going to, bulldoze it over and not help the people that are living there. But what I hope this does is it puts people on notice in Columbus who own these types of properties that we expect you to be serious about keeping them up to code and making sure that those you are renting to are living in a quality environment. That's not too much to ask for. It gives me pause especially when some of these buildings and apartments are owned by people from out of town. It's not that I don't want out-of-towners to invest in Columbus, I do, but if they're not here every day to see it or walk by it, and I've driven by this one many times, and trust me, I'm about to go over there probably after this meeting. I'm going to walk around, I'm going to get Kenny to take me, I'm going to take a serious look, because those pictures were offensive to me last night, very offensive. So that's where I came down on that. Also, during the executive session, the mayor and city council took up 3 matters of personnel. The first related to the job performance of an individual in the recreation department, Parks and Rec. The mayor and city council voted to promote an individual who had been performing exemplary service above and beyond the job duties to the title of supervisor of maintenance with a corresponding increase in salary, and we were pleased to do that. That was at the recommendation of the director of parks. The other 2 matters related to health conditions of employees in the police department. The first of these, the mayor and city council agreed to extend FMLA leave for a long-standing employee and to allow the employee to continue to seek donated leave during her illness. She is doing better. And the way that works is that employees who have accumulated enough time, and Ms. Pat told me that I had not donate any, that they can donate that to a fellow employee, which is a wonderful thing. When I was at Mississippi State and other state organizations, we did that quite often for people that got sick. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do. And then, let's see, so we approved that. And then the second case related to a probationary employee in the police department who would otherwise not qualify for FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act. The mayor and city council approved this police officer to use their accrued vacation and sick leave rather than terminate. It's noteworthy that all of these employees were recommended for these accommodations due to their past service to the city and anticipated value and contributions to their respective departments. So those were the 2 things we took up. No, 3. Those were the 3 things Peter was pointing out last night, because we only had 2 on the agenda. Those were the 3 things that we talked about in the executive session. So with that, how about, there was a lot of questions, I think, about Probst Park. Let me say this. Pierre, Councilman Beard, whose Probst Park is in his ward, have had several good conversations about the future of Probst Park. I made no bones about it early on that I'm very passionate about the idea of revitalizing that park. When I moved here in 1987, I remember fondly going there and playing tennis and watching kids play baseball, covering it for the Dispatch, getting hit upside the head with a baseball by a little leaguer that literally knocked me to the ground. And then I've talked to people all over this community and the county that have fond memories of that park. That park has been a big part of Columbus for many, many years. And so I've also been talking to, and all the council is interested in it and have made comments. Councilman Beard and I have talked a little bit more about it because it's in his ward. But I've also talked to members of the Board of Supervisors who are very interested in partnering with the city on looking at what we can do. This is not saying right now that we're going to be going back to the old version of the city-county agreement. This is just the fact that Columbus citizens are also Lowndes County residents. And so there should be some money within the county that could help us do this. We've also been looking at, I pointed out last night after Kevin talked about the Field of Dreams, which was built for special needs, which kids and adults, which is very close to my heart. The thing I loved about that so much was there was a lot of money raised privately through organizations and individuals. And if you haven't seen that, it is an oasis in the middle of that park right now. And that's just another element of what I'm talking about, that when you get public and private partnerships, that's a good thing for a community. Kevin has also been working with me. The VFW has been very interested in trying to, I don't know if refurbish is the right word, but to build a new bridge in Probst Park so people can pass through the park to get to there. They're wanting to help pay for some of it. And we've been in meetings about that. And so those are the kinds of things that are very encouraging to me. People have reached out to me about the dog park there. I've talked to Greg about that. People still use it. It's a great little park. We have one down the street at the soccer fields too, but people like to use that one out there as well. The one out there actually is a little bigger, I think, and but it needs a little facelift, and we need to get some of the fences and stuff fixed. So we're going to work on all those things too. So I was very pleased to see us have that discussion last night. So with that, I'm going to let our city engineer Kevin Stafford come up and explain a little bit more than we did, or either reiterate a few things from the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
I'll be real brief. Really, from last night, what I wanted to give was more of a historical context. In the early 2000s, the Park and Rec Board, when it was Columbus and Lowndes County, identified several recreation needs, of which a soccer complex, community centers, and then the revitalization of Probst Park all came about. Obviously, several of those have already happened, but Probst Park still sits almost 20 years later. I know Councilman Green and I were joking about he was actually on the board when the presentation I gave last night was presented to that board at that time, which now no longer exists. So with that, it's been on the books for a while. The original overall concept was put together in 2014. For cost reasons, we were asked to try to rub two nickels together, the words I used last night, in 2018 to bring the cost down. And now we're looking at really the first piece of it, which is the front 5 fields. The original master plan had 10 fields. Field of Dreams has already been built. The front 5 flex is what we want to complete first. That would also gain Park and Rec another field. But the biggest thing it does is it brings a new aesthetic to the front complex. It brings a better functionality and brings tournament grade fields to the city, which currently we don't have. So this will be junior league baseball programs, which obviously that's your majority of your tournaments that happen are revolving around that. And the park has plenty of room to do a second wheel in the future. So in talking with Greg Lewis in the past, he's wanted to do turf fields. And so being a concept, being part of the master plan, the idea now is to let's stop and let's look at the options that are out there. Where do we want to go with this? How much funding is it going to take to get the dream in which we want to go towards? And so I think the discussion last night from the council was let's start that discussion back and see where we go from here. So that's the historical context of where this has been. This isn't anything new. It's really more the next thing on the punch list that we need to get to as far as recreation in the city. So thank you.
Was fast. I think I ever heard Jeff do it. Kevin do one that fast. I mean, come on. Thank you, Kevin, for that. Again, another thing we talked about, I've talked about this with all the councilmen, is that we also believe that bringing Probst Park back could spur economic growth around the park with businesses and other things, and seeing more people using that park, which is, I think, in the center of our Love City. The Love City would be a wonderful thing. Now, any questions on that? Yes.
Last night there was a mention of some $800,000 that was available for that project. Several questions on that. Wait, is that the tourism tax money,
Mm-hmm.
one? And two, is this going to be a pay-as-you-go type project, or is this going to be something that y'all would possibly issue bonds for and then pay it back over time with the tourism tax?
That's a little premature to say that. I think at this point, I would not be for doing bonds at all. But I'm not going to take anything off the table because that obviously would be a council decision. What I'm hoping to do is use the money that we have to try to get things moving so that we see some. But I would like for us to be at the same time working on a long-range plan for where we want to go with it. I think that was one of the reasons that Councilman Jones requested that some of us travel to Tupelo. Not Tupelo. I hate to give Tupelo publicity. Vicksburg. And look at their park. Now, I've been to other parks around the state too. Tupelo, I mentioned them already. They've done a good job with theirs. Hey, Tupelo, we like you, Tupelo. So yeah, we want to try to do that and have a plan as to move forward. And also the reason we brought this up is we want citizen input. There are a lot of people who come by to visit me here at City Hall who wants to volunteer, like adopt a park to help clean it up and do those kinds of things. So we want a lot of feedback on this, but we don't want to do it too hodgepodgey. But like for instance, the parks, this past year when we had a tournament coming into town, there was some problems with the fields. There was some gravel or something. I can't remember exactly, but people are coming from out of town to still use that park. And so we want to get it to a point to where we're proud of it. And I think there's a lot of people right now that would not be so proud of it, but it's a historic park that we want to bring together. So the short answer to your question is probably no bonds. That would be a council meeting at the end. Using money we have in place, possibly identifying money through, Starkville's trying to use some of their money that came down from the federal government for that. My wife is calling me. She knows I'm in a press conference. The county could potentially help us with it. Okay,
so ARPA and possible help from the county.
Yes, and also I'm very interested in talking to citizens about investing. There's been a lot of talk of maybe Columbus building an auditorium. We're known for our swim teams. Wouldn't it be great to have an auditorium out there? But that would be good if there was a lot of public-private support or something like that. I think that would bring a lot of folks to that park and would make us very unique in this town. We are a top swimming town in the state of Mississippi, have been for years. And the city's never had its own, to my knowledge. Well, they had Sanderson, what was it? Sanders Pool was out there. And it's covered up now. Was it used for swim teams? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, yeah. So there's all kinds of things potentially to do.
Okay, well I got two questions for Kevin, if you'll indulge me. The first is the first fiveplex, what are the cost estimates on that as you see it right now?
Will you repeat his question so people could hear it?
So the first fiveplex, as you know, the Field of Dreams has already been built. So you have 4 fields left. The estimate we gave out last night was $2 million, but that gets just the fields done and the lighting upgraded. That does not include a new concession, new restroom, new press box, which these fields really deserve. The thinking was, again, going back to rubbing 2 nickels together, let's use the existing restrooms and concessions that are in place that have recently been renovated and or expand those if we had to at a lesser cost. But again, that's part of that conversation that we need to head towards.
Okay, but y'all have any estimates on what those other ancillary things other than the fields?
No. So if you started adding parking and upgrading, let's just say the playground, there's a lot of other things that could go into that. And that's part of what going to see some other facilities and seeing what you like and you don't like and how they do their business, if you will. I'll also add that, there are some private funds that could come into helping run, just like Starkville's privatizing the function of their overall Parks and Rec. Mm-hmm. There are facilities such as Vicksburg that have Sports Force, is the name of the company there, that actually help design, bid, build, and manage the facility. And so there's other ways that you can look to manage these things. So again, it's up for discussion right now. There's a lot of ways to make it happen.
Okay. So the design that you presented yesterday, the copy that you gave to me, what are the differences between that and what was presented in 14 and 18?
The biggest was the cost and the layout of the parking lots. Obviously, that's a huge cost when you're doing dirt fields. And so the 14 version had two parking lots that happened in 2 phases. The front wheel had its own parking, the back wheel had its own parking. So that was the original concept, which was adequate parking between the 2 fields, or the 2 wheels, if you will, fiveplexes. And then I was asked, well, can everybody still park around the outside and walk in? Sure we can. And so the 2018 version did away with the overall paved parking, shoved 2 wheels together, and then you had basic grass and gravel parking, which is what's out there now, utilized in that way. And again, that was just to save cost. And so then, of course, the last version is just doing the front wheel and focusing on it right now. So, but like you saw with the Field of Dreams, a whole new parking lot was built there specially for that field to fit their need. Those still things would have to happen with the new wheel. There'll be some minor road modifications around the park to make that work. So it had those costs in there as well.
Okay.
Can I have one question?
Sure.
How soon are we talking about getting this together?
You're asking the wrong man, but I would say, it's up to the council and when they see fit to move forward. And again, once we get, community feedback and get a good game plan together and the funding possibilities, what moves forward and when it moves forward has all those things still in play right now to discuss.
We had a Facebook question. Approximately how much money are you raising a year through the taxes for that?
So it's $400,000 a year, and that's where that 800,000 comes from. This is from the 2% tax. That's a 4-year state legislative mandate, if you will. So it'll be 1.6 over 4 years eventually that will come through. That is somewhat earmarked, if you will, for recreation and a few other things.
So there's about 800,000 in the bank now.
Correct. Hadn't been spent.
So you've got a commitment for 2 more years of it
Correct.
at 400,000.
They'll need to be reviewed and renewed at that point.
So that's how you get the 1.6 for Probst Park.
Well, that's just 1.6 in general. So
It doesn't have to be all be used for Probst Park.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
it just says recreation.
5,000 to roast and boats, so we're
Okay.
looking at 795.
That was the last one. Thank you.
Which was a good investment.
Right, perfect.
Yeah, and that was a good comment by Councilman Beard, because that money could be used for events to support like Roast and Boast and those kinds of things, which are important in bringing tourism and taxpayers and that kind of thing. Let me say this too, because I've stressed this before. We are going to be very proactive and aggressive in trying to find grant support for the parks too. There are a lot of places to go for money with not just federal and state, but with private nonprofits that like to support parks like this in cities like ours. So don't count us out on that. So we can't tell you exactly what we're going to do, but what we can tell you today is that this council and this mayor is passionate about Probst Park, and we're going to try to move this along as quickly as we can. Now,
Sir, I have a question.
oh, I'm sorry.
So to kind of backtrack on the historical aspect of it, my generation coming up and generations coming up after me, they don't understand the importance of Probst Park. So how, as a whole, would we be able to show the historic aspect of, like, for example, I know the railroad caught this out there in front.
Yes.
So we have more of a bigger, ideology or a bigger landscape to showcase. Okay, this is what happened in this area. This is what happened in this area. Will we show a little bit more importance of Probst Park?
Well, I think so. He's asking, can we show the importance of Probst Park to maybe a generation that didn't enjoy it like the others? And I think that's an excellent question, and yes, we will do that. In fact, we have a couple of gentlemen that are looking at forming a nonprofit to help Columbus build its baseball programs. And while they played at Probst Park, they also played in Sim Scott, which is a great baseball field that we're not using as much right now as they would like. So we're going to have people like that coming back and telling their stories and their experiences of what went on in the parks and Probst Park and stuff and how it changed their lives. Both of those guys went on to play college baseball and minor league baseball, I think. Yep. And so I think there are folks that are from Columbus but even live outside of Columbus now are excited about the idea of Probst Park. So yes, I think we need to do a better job of letting people know the history of the park. We could probably find ways to do that within the park. We'll talk about it a lot. We'll probably have events where I would like to see us, Councilman Beard and I have talked about, getting citizens in the park and talking to us and giving us their ideas. So I think you're going to see a lot of proactivity in people trying to, because we really want the community involved in this, and we want to kind of get a groundswell of let's bring this park back. Yes, sir.
I do have a question, but I guess it'll be for me to answer as well.
Oh, good. Well, I'll let you come up here and you come up here and ask and answer.
But seriously, at the park, you got the different fields named after. Can we find out information about the name of the old people and get, we have a lot of people my age that has baseball teams. Can we rename some of these fields and let those people, like I say, we're not trying to go and borrow money. We're trying to use what we got. And Columbus is a rich city. So it's a lot of people that want to, rename some of these parks after, their family names and different things like that. So I guess it's more of a statement, not a question, but...
Well, I can answer that question.
Yeah, say all of it.
Because, yes, that can be, because having worked in fundraising most of my career, you most certainly can rename something, depending on what your policy is, and I'm not sure what our naming policy is, but we need to review that, but you can also hyphenate. That's what fundraisers do. So to get some more money on a name, they hyphenate it, But in all seriousness, that's a very good comment and a good question. We do need to review the naming policy of anything within the city. You know, the state of Louisiana won't let you put a name on any building until after that person's dead, because, you know, you never know what they're gonna do once you put their name on it. That's a joke, but that's true, that is policy there. You know, and then there's, but yes, yeah, that's a good comment and question, and yes, there are naming opportunities there for sure, should be, yes. Any other questions before we move into, the ordinance for sound? Noise, not sound, but noise ordinance. All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Tell them who you are. I'm sorry, I didn't introduce you.
I'm Investigator Branch with the Columbus Police Department. So, this new noise ordinance that was proposed to the City Council last night is very detailed. The current noise ordinance that we have is very vague. It leaves everything up to the officer's discretion, what's loud and what's not loud. So, what we need the new ordinance, if it's approved by the council, is very detailed, not just for our entertainment venues, but for residential houses also. And it's not leaving it up to the officers to make that discretion, who gets the ticket, who's not. So it's going to, the new system that they bought is scientific, so it's not leaving it up to Officer Branch or another officer to make a decision who gets that ticket. So it's not like we're picking on a certain establishment or residential house. That this thing records the decimal leader for each resident and is stored into the system so that we can use it and show the residential owner or the bar or wherever we're using it for. So what our plan is, if we get a call out for it, I'll be responding out until we get another officer trained or another device. What we'll do is show the entertainment center, the residential person living there, what it is and where we need it to be at. After that, we'll start writing tickets to them. Well, my plan is we'll record from my cell phone, city cell phone, location we're at, show them the decimeter for 2 or 3 minutes, and then give them a citation after the warning. We're not out here to do it, but the quality of life for other people who's living in these areas, residential areas, we get a lot of calls, they can't sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
Pictures falling off the wall because, it's too much boom boom. And it's not just the thump, but it's people having house parties all through the city. That, it's just it's taken away from our police officers taking care of the calls other than a loud ordinance, a nuisance. So.
Does that apply for cars that go into neighborhoods as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that's the thing. Our ordinance that we're currently on is very vague. So it's leaving it up to each officer to make that decision. Some officers, they don't have a problem with it. But with this new ordinance, it gives us very decisive of what loud noise is.
Could you explain briefly how it records like a recorder and then you'll plot the noise? Can you explain that?
Yeah, so what you do is you turn it on. The first thing we're going to do is turn it on. We're going to, and the ordinance, I have not read everything in detail. I think it's about 11 or 12 pages long. But like at the entertainment centers, I know I've seen some comments on Facebook about, what about, amphitheaters or city events. I'm not going to discriminate who we're going to write it to. If it's a city event, someone's renting that place, and we're going to treat everybody equal. So it turns on. What it does is I'm going to sit back. I'm not going to be inside the establishment. I'm going to be outside the establishment. Some say on the property line, some 5 feet. I want to be fair. We're not just going to do it 5 feet someplace other. Be on the property line. That's where I'm not on your property. We're outside property line, and we're going to get a decimal reader.
And we're waiting for the city council to adopt this ordinance that you're talking about?
Yeah, it was presented last night to the council, and I think that was the first time they looked at it and they had to read through it. But what I've read on it so far is no discrepancies in it. It's very detail oriented of what the police officers are looking for.
Good question. But you mentioned something about, and I just want to make sure that we're not equivocating here. Last night, the city attorney mentioned that city-sponsored events and events sponsored by groups like the CDB would be exempt from the noise ordinances. And I just, based on what you just said, I wanted to make sure that I was clear on that.
Yeah, I haven't read everything in it, as of yet, but like, the Charter Convention Center, how the city rents it out.
Mm-hmm.
To my understanding, what I've read so far is, they will still fall in the
Right,
same
if
guidelines.
it's a private party renting city facilities,
That is
then
correct.
it doesn't exempt them, but if it's like.
Juneteenth or the roast and bogus or something like that,
Right,
I think they're exempt
Yeah.
from that as long.
okay.
One last question, Matt.
Yes, sir.
Also, this includes the people that have house parties outside and these run around and.
That's correct, and we have an ordinance in the city already about house parties, but this loud noise ordinance, you know, it's in residential, areas that are, you know, keeping other people up that don't stay up past 10 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, that was good. On the ordinance, again, we're gonna be reviewing this closely, so if anything that was stated here that you have questions about, let us know. One of the things about events and stuff, there's a time frame for the noise in this thing as well. We gotta factor all that in. The city is not gonna allow the city events to, you know, be crazy. I mean, we're going to try to be as consistent across the board as we possibly can. We hope everybody knows that. I will tell you this, as mayor, I have had citizens from every single ward come up here to see me, and most of them are complaining about noise in their neighborhood, not businesses. So, or, you know, boom, boom, boom down the street in their car, or, while they're parking to get gas, and it's just, blowing everybody off away from their, while they're trying to pump their gas. I still don't know it, and I played my music louder when I was young. I'm not quite sure why everybody thinks everybody else wants to hear what they're listening to, but that seems to be, but that's everywhere, right? It's a joke. So, yeah, and in fact, Pierre last night didn't seem too daunted by the sound. All the other council were doing this. I think it's because he's younger. I think some of this is generational. But I'm proud of the fact that we've researched a ordinance with our city sister Oxford. I don't know if it's city, but Oxford in the same state with us. They're a college town, so are we. And so they put a lot of expense into it. $10,000. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to find things that have worked. And even once this is passed, we may have to revisit it because things change. And so what we're trying to do is try to find a happy medium for everybody. We don't want to, try to harm businesses from having a successful business. We don't want to try to stop people from enjoying their music. But the thing that really bothers me is because there's so many elderly people who are coming up here and saying that, noises in their neighborhood are keeping them awake, or cars going by cranking up at 6, whatever, in the morning or earlier. And somebody mentioned, the garbage trucks being loud. That's true. So it's not, we can't get it perfect, but we want to try to do it in a way that's going to make Columbus as good of a city as possible to live in, noise-free. Yes.
What's the timeline for the public hearing and the consideration for approval of the ordinance?
Good question. We're going to take it up at the next meeting, is my understanding, which will be November.
Second.
Yeah. That was a very official question, and I wasn't ready for it. I can tell both you, Councilman Green, both your eyebrows were shooting up when he said it. But yeah, it'll be soon. Because, we're all getting messages on a regular basis about it. So we're very serious about it, but it's a very serious issue that we want to try to get right.
One last question, Mayor. Let's talk a little bit about the people that was outside last night at city council meeting, wanting the audit done. You want to make any kind of comment on that, or you don't have to, but I'm just.
Well, I will say this. I have encouraged the citizens of Columbus to get more involved in their local government. And that is not to try to harass or berate or anything of the such of elected officials. You know, our politics is toxic in this country, unfortunately. And it's been that way from the very first presidential election with Adams and Jefferson. The difference is the communication, the way it communicates has changed, you know, tremendously. And, you know, people are very passionate about these different topics. So if people are doing a protest, I think some of that one was in jest as to some of the, you know, the language that was used, pitchfork, you know, what was the other word? Torch. And they were casually sitting out there, you know, barbecuing and putting up their signs and, you know, I think basically having fun. I avoided it at all costs. I tried to go in the side entrance so I wouldn't have to walk through it. I think other councilmen did too. You know, people contacted me beforehand. They were worried about it being, you know, bad. And I don't ever want to see that. But, you know, I think citizens have a right to come out and, you know, and express their opinion, just like the council and I have talked about. We can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable because people are tuning in. If people that are thinking about moving to Columbus or investing in Columbus, if they see, you know, if they feel like we're not trying to work together, even when we disagree, then there's going to be pause. But I would say this, and I think last night's council meeting was a testament to that. I've been saying all along, you know, we're trying to work together. We don't have any ill will towards each other. If we happen to disagree on a topic, I think that's healthy, you know. But we're still all getting to know each other well. I'm, trying to, we're all trying to do the best we can. But I still say the citizens should stay focused. Like I said, when I ran for mayor, I ran as an independent and I had to get 50 signatures to run, and half the people that I talked to didn't know what ward they lived in. They didn't know who their council person was. They either thought their council person was their board of supervisor. That's scary. I'm also asking people to bring the rhetoric down because that's one of the reasons people don't want to go and run for office. Nobody wants to walk into a council meeting and people screaming at you from the parking lot. That ain't cool. Nobody wants to do that. So, but I don't want to criticize them for coming out and, and making a statement. I think they were doing it in jest. I think they were trying, I don't even know who the group was. I saw their thing on Facebook. But I think it was kind of satire in a way, but serious satire in the fact that they would like to have an audit. And the council will determine that long term, and the citizens will have an input. And just because people disagree on a topic and are expressing that, doesn't mean that there's an ulterior motive or people are trying to be, but unfortunately we know the environment that we live in. I will go to my grave believing that Columbus is not as divided as people like to say, or some people would say. I think we're the best city in the state. We're going to have growing pains along the way, but that doesn't mean that we're not all up here because we want to try to make a difference. Every member of this council loves this city. I love this city, and we're trying to do the best we can, but I think more citizens need to be involved. I think more citizens need to run for office. I think it's always good to have a healthy debate on topics, and I'll stand by that. I believe in the fourth estate. I will always defend y'all. People come up to me all the time about the media making things worse. Y'all got a job to do. You need to do it. But it's not easy. So why'd you ask me that? So that's my comment on that.
Last question I have, 4-day work week, y'all sort of introduced it last night.
Yes.
Talked about it. Everybody seemed pretty agreeable to it. And starting in January, what happens here for the logistics of making that official?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I should have mentioned that too. The 4-day work week is something that the city had in place for like 15 years. I didn't even realize that when the council changed it maybe 2 years ago. Double check me on that. Don't quote me because I don't have that quite right. But it had been in place for a long time, and I didn't even realize that. And one of the reasons I believe they changed it, well, there are a lot of reasons people have different opinions, but I think there were some concerns that some of the services of the city were not being handled on Fridays when people were not in their offices. So one of the things that I asked to do when I first came in as mayor, even before we realized we couldn't give raises this year, when I was visiting with the different departments, that came up from everybody. The employees really liked it for numerous reasons. Now they had an earlier day, they had to get started earlier, and they had to squeeze those hours into 4 days, which is not easy to do. But one thing is, and I'm trying to get evidence of this, is that it looks like the city was saving money from a fuel standpoint and electricity. It looked like we had less people taking off during the week for like doctor's appointments and stuff because people could schedule their stuff on Friday because they knew. Also because we're a government entity and we don't have unlimited funds for salaries, this is another kind of perk that you can have to try to attract really good people. And it was very popular within the employees. Now, what we want to do is make sure if we go back to this that it doesn't affect services to the city. And so that was one of the reasons that we're trying to get this worked out between now and January 1. The first meeting I had with what I'm calling the mayor's cabinet, which is me, the COO, the chief of police, the fire chief, and the HR director. And then we get the reports in from all the other department heads through the COO, and we meet, and to me it was much more productive for me to work that way. And so we started that process on Monday. And so Ms. Mitchell, our HR director, is working hard, and she's really kind of taken the lead on this with us because she's the one that's the most knowledgeable about this particular topic. And then I've talked to Mike Burnson, who's here on a interim basis, to see if he can help us pull the numbers on how it affected, the city costs and stuff. So we really want to put a plan out there to show why we're doing this. We're just not trying to say, okay, we're going to give them all 4-day work week again. But so we're trying to do our due diligence. And so I would say, Zach, in the next week or two, we'll be coming forward with more information about that. And, we'll obviously take citizen input on it too, because they made some suggestions.
But there ought to be a council vote sometime before January.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I can easily say that the council is very serious and in favor of doing something like this. Yeah, so it could take effect in January. So it will be before the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all we got, Mayor.
Thank you, everybody.